Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen here with another interesting edition of the show. We've got All Out happening tomorrow night from Chicago. An 8-match card looks pretty solid. That predictions episode for All Out will air later on tonight. It is in the editing process. As long as it's all said and done, it will be out tonight. Otherwise, it will not be shown, and you will never know what predictions I had for the show. But we ideally will have a guest for that program, and as long as things go according to plan, it will be out tonight. That being said, I wanted to put out an episode just in case that fell through. Either way, and it's a little bit of a hodgepodge. We're going to touch a little bit on what happened at Bash in Berlin, a little bit of a recap of Dynamite as we lead into All Out, and some just outside the ring stuff. I'm going to remember the late, great Sid Vicious, Psycho Sid, however you want to refer to him as. He passed away last week or a couple of weeks ago, I believe now, but yeah, a couple of things just to touch on in this little, I'm just going to call it a hodgepodge of news, notes, what happened this week, some interesting programming announcements with the Netflix and Mr. McMahon's show, docuseries, a lot of different things going on. Before we get into any of that, let's just get this out of the way. Follow me on Twitter, at JuicySteen, on Instagram, at Juicy Wrestling Closet. You can subscribe to this show on YouTube, at Juicy Steen. And, of course, you can find this show on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, juicysteen.podbean.com. And, if you listen to it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, if you can drop a rating and review, that would really help the show grow. Like I said, as long as everything goes according to plan, later on tonight you guys will get the All Out predictions show in the feed. Not sure if next week or the following week, there's going to be a back-to-back weeks of Main Event Maniacs, and I will relay what that episode, 2-episode series is going to entail. But Brian and Jay, the guys, are back with another pretty important main event, 2 main events actually, and they're really recent, so you guys can kind of gauge what you think that those guys will be discussing on the next episodes of Main Event Maniacs coming out in September. I know they've got a lot cooking in the future. I think there's something really special coming out for October. Looking forward to that as well, but of course, one show at a time. Let's discuss a couple of news and notes. There is a rumor put out today, as of this recording. NBC Universal is seemingly looking to put out a live primetime special. Apparently is going to be announced in the next few days. Apparently tickets are going on sale next Friday. That's from sources. This is all coming from Wrestle Votes, who have been disproved in the past, but you never know. It will be the first primetime NBC special since August of 2008. It seemingly could be the return of Saturday night's Main Event. We will find out, but looking forward to seeing what exactly they've got, on their docket in regards to a show, where it takes place, what kind of programming will it be, so on and so forth. So looking forward to that. I wanted to mention this interesting little nugget. Bad Blood, the next PLE for WWE, taking place on October 5th, which we'll talk about. It's the 27th anniversary of the first Hell in a Cell match, and it seems like that's the destination for Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. But that start time for the show will be 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which I find fascinating. It will be the first PLE pay-per-view, what have you, to have this early of a start time since, I believe, WrestleMania 10 in North America, of course. But WrestleMania 10 was, I believe, 4 p.m. Eastern. I know on this show I've discussed in the past, they had, Royal Rumbles on Monday. They've had it on Saturdays. They had it in the afternoon on Saturdays. All these different things. But WrestleMania 10 being so early, Bad Blood, WrestleMania now is 7 p.m., at least the main show. But for 6 p.m., I find it interesting. I'm pretty sure it's due to the UFC pay-per-view taking place the same evening, and they would probably like to not overlap the two, considering they're under the same, company now, practically, with TKO Endeavor. So they're not going to want to step all over that. With more programming, of course, Raw is officially going to Netflix. The first episode will be January 6th, 2025. Cannot wait. Should be wild. I think a lot of talent is going to be at that show. I think you'll see Cena. I think you'll see The Rock. I think you'll see potentially Steve Austin. I think you're going to see a lot of talent. You might get a huge match or two on the show. Frequent contributor to the show, Justin LaBar of Busted Open Radio, stated that, why not sell out a stadium or a bigger arena for the first Raw on Netflix? I mean, it's an unprecedented show. You could sell it based on one match, if you really plan it out accordingly. And I don't see why not. So I'd be all in to that. But January 6th. Additionally, kind of a prelude of the WWE Netflix relationship will be September 25th. Later on this month, the Mr. McMahon docuseries will be released. I'm not sure on how many episodes, but it was, a lot of McMahon interviews in the trailers, which is pretty cool to see. However, the story and the allegations that have surfaced and Vince McMahon leaving WWE effectively last year, or I believe it was January of this year, is kind of detailed in there. And I believe it was, after the majority of the filming had been completed. So it's going to be interesting to see what they really cover. I'm sure social media will be very friendly to all of it. But it's going to be a very polarizing docuseries, to say the least. So we'll see how that goes. Something I'm just floating through my Twitter feed, something I wanted to mention here. We talk about controversial figures, and, one was, of course, Vince McMahon. We just discussed his docuseries coming up. But, dear Hulk Hogan had the privilege of being on Impulsive with Logan Paul. He said some interesting things, some things that we will probably not cover on this show because it is a wrestling-based show, first and foremost. But this little nugget I had to dive on and bring up here on the Juice Box as the WCW fan, and a guy who grew up on Hulk Hogan being Hollywood Hogan. I didn't grow up with the red and yellow. I grew up with the NWO, and I kind of like it that way because I have always viewed Hogan as a heel. I do think he's at the same time he could be the greatest heel and babyface potentially in pro wrestling history, which is saying a lot. But nevertheless, the quote that really was bizarre in the sense of, referencing WCW and what have you. Quote, I had creative control in WCW. I never used it. Never used it the whole time. And I'm just going to stop you right there. I tweeted these 4 specific reasons, and then I'm sure there's plenty of other examples to go off of, but the 4 examples that I found particularly hilarious in regards to Hogan saying he never used his creative control. The first being Hogan defending the world title at Starrcade 94 against his friend, The Butcher. Starrcade 97, the Sting-Hogan match with the Nick Patrick, quote, fast count that because of Sting's look and among other factors, that doesn't work for me, brother. The Finger Poke of Doom, January 4th, 1999. Not only does Mankind win the world title, boy, that'll put some butts in the seats, but Goldberg, who just lost the world title after ascending to the heights earlier in 98, loses it at the end of 98, never really sniffs the world title again, and instead goes into a feud with Scott Hall and Bam Bam Bigelow and Kevin Nash. But in the meantime, they decide to do the Finger Poke of Doom because they weren't expecting it. Well, that was a Hogan creative control move, I believe, as well. And last but certainly not least, Bash of the Beach 2000, Jeff Jarrett, Hulk Hogan. This is the reason why the company is in the damn shape that it's in, because of bullshit like this. And that's those are 4 prime examples. Prime, he was on Impulsive, so prime examples of Hulk Hogan exercising his creative control or pull within the company, or whatever you want to label it. But I don't know, it just seemed a little shady, to say the least. And we move forward, not discussing Hulk Hogan. I guess we could talk about that. We'll do a little bit of Raw, but I really want to touch on Bash in Berlin first, and then we'll get to Raw, and then we'll talk about the Dynamite episode this past week, the big takeaway from that, of course, and All Out, which, again, ideally you will have the prediction show in the feed later on tonight, so hopefully you'll get that. But let's go to Bash in Berlin. I felt that it was a quality show. Once again, a international PLE with a lot of flavor, a lot of good wrestling, good stories being told, and I thought everything kind of turned out the way it should have, depending on how they're going to move forward. I think everything went the way it should have, including, of course, Cody Rhodes defeating Kevin Owens by pin, retaining his world title, his WWE Championship. Of course, with SmackDown tonight, we won't really truly know what's next for Cody. However, I believe Solo Sikoa last week mentioned how he's up next. Oh, boy. Well, we'll see. We will see what's truly up next in the next couple of hours on SmackDown. We'll find out for sure who Cody's got next, assuming he defends the championship at Bad Blood. I mean, he's in the promo teasers for Bad Blood with Metro Boomin, so I don't see why he couldn't be featured in a show, a PLE in Atlanta, WCW, Atlanta, Center Stage. I mean, a lot of things turning up Cody Rhodes having to be at the show and probably defending his championship. But who against, I'm not sure. Kevin Owens did not turn heel, of course. He stayed true to the end. He did hurt, Cody had a hurt knee, but there was really nothing utilized as a heel towards it after the fact, so no skin off his back there. But I felt like it was a solid match. Cody gets the win. We had Women's Tag Team Championships changing hands. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill reclaim the Women's Tag Team titles. Now, will this mean that, they'll hold them for a while, and who knows, but this could be the vehicle that eventually gets them to split, and then we get a one-on-one match between the two? Maybe. I'm not really convinced on that. I think that they're really trying to boost the tag titles. And unfortunately, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, the Unholy Union, which, again, how many nicknames and team names are we just coming up with now, whether they fit or not? But, I think Bianca and Jade are quality tag team champions. I really want to see Jade in a single, and I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. She's going to be approaching a year being signed with WWE this month, and officially with WWE, of course, at the Royal Rumble. That'll be her one true year in ring, as it were. So we'll see what happens, and she made it pretty far in the Royal Rumble last year. I'm not going to say that she's going to win the Royal Rumble next year, but you don't know. So we'll see what happens. Of course, the big mixed tag match, the Terror Twins, Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley, get the big win over Dirty Dom Mysterio and Liv Morgan. Of course, they built up a little bit extra on Raw, and Rhea with a little ankle twist and caught in the ropes, and I think we'll see a match for the title at Bad Blood between Liv and Rhea, but again, nothing is set in stone just yet. But it was nice to see those two. Rhea and Damian Priest, who were, top of the line of the Judgment Day, as soon as they kicked Edge's ass out of there, all the way to changing his name and going to AEW, they really led the Judgment Day for a very long time, and Rhea became a huge star, I think, because of that. I think Priest was under the radar and then ended up winning the world title after winning Money in the Bank, which I thought was a really cool move, and I don't see why he couldn't win the world title again next time, of course, as a babyface. But, leading up to this as both babyfaces now, and they, wore each other's merch gear, and I don't know, a lot of cool pieces to the Terror Twins, as it were, and I'm glad they get the win. So we'll see what's next. Truthfully, it's a little too early to tell with Bad Blood on the horizon of what's actually going to take place. I know that next week is the season, I think it's the season premiere of Raw, which, I have no problem with. They did mention Bret the Hitman Hart will be in attendance, which will be awesome. I do believe it's in Calgary, but the season premiere is going to go right up against Monday Night Football, which will get a ton of viewers considering it's the 49ers hosting Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, and hopefully he can last longer than 4 plays, but we shall see. Of course, this is not an NFL podcast, but I'm happy for the Terror Twins, and they got the win. They, Judgment Day kind of got their comeuppance, but I do still see Priest and Finn Balor having a collision course for Bad Blood, so we'll see. Gunther defeated Randy Orton with a submission. I thought it was a wonderful match. I thought both guys really, really put it all out there. You got the cool introduction by Kaiser, which I thought was really awesome. No offense to Samantha Irvin, but it was what it was. I did forget to mention, though, Jey Uso kind of inserting himself as friends with Rhea and Priest, so we'll see where that goes. Sami Zayn, though, I did want to mention, challenged Gunther, hey, I beat you for the Intercontinental title, and now you're the world champion, and I want that title. I don't think it's going to be that easy to just do. So, no. But maybe that's what they're going to pull off. They're going to have to come up with something with Gunther. I'd like to see a multi-man match, maybe. I mean, they're already doing the Intercontinental Championship tournament. Maybe not a tournament per se, but I think Gunther should defend the title at Bad Blood. I think it's only, right to do. But thought that was a good match. We also had, of course, and we'll transition into Raw proper here, but we already mentioned Hell in a Cell, seemingly happening in a Bad Blood. 27-year anniversary of the first Bad Blood, the first Hell in a Cell. And, Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, quality strap match, brutal strap match. CM Punk gets his first victory back with WWE as a singles competitor since returning. He didn't win the Royal Rumble. He lost his match at SummerSlam. So he needed to get the win. He needed to get solidified back into the upper card. You needed to have the 1-1 tie before seemingly having this third match, which is going to probably be Hell in a Cell. And boy, Punk wins this match though and is like, hey, I want gold. Well, Drew McIntyre was not having any of that. And this is something else we'll talk about. This was the first episode of Raw with Joe Tessitore, who is a football announcer, a boxing announcer for a very long time, a boxing announcer. I always remember him doing the commentary for the Fight Night video games from EA Sports back in the day. His voice is very booming. It's very unique. It's emphatic. But when Punk is kind of out there being like, "Hey, I won. I can't wait to look forward to the future. I want a title," and someone attacks Punk, and Joe Tessitore was just being himself, and goes, "That's Drew McIntyre in a hoodie." Like, not even saying who's that, not insulting the intelligence of the fans, kind of saying what exactly it was. It's the bad guy dressed down, sneakily attacking Punk. And I thought it was brilliant. And I thought Joe Tessitore did a wonderful job in his first night on Raw. Really happy that he got this opportunity. I know he's like a lot of us are, and anybody that really gets in the business of pro wrestling, a lifelong fan, and if this is an opportunity presented, I don't see why he wouldn't accept it. And it's kind of daunting. I mean, there have been quite a few announcers that have come through and just, here, do Monday Night Raw. And it is very difficult. It's daunting. It's a difficult job. But I think he did well, and we'll see what the next couple of weeks present for him. I'm looking forward to hearing Joe Tessitore on a PLE. That is where I'm going to be looking to see cadences and how well he's worked up till that point, and bringing the levity of a PLE, showing its importance more than a regular old, episode of Raw per se. You want to kind of show that, yeah, Raw is the show, but the PLEs are going to have a little bit more cachet. So, looking forward to that, assuming it's Bad Blood. But anything else really happened on Raw? Nothing too crazy that I can recall. I'm going to actually briefly go through some of the stuff that may have happened. But, I mean, nothing really out of this world came through. But, I thought Raw was an okay show. I do want to mention NXT, though. NXT No Mercy happened this past Sunday. And we had the debut of Julia, famed women's wrestling international star, who now gets a shot, arguably in the big time, NXT. It's a big deal. It's WWE. It's NXT. It's really where, careers go to blossom. And I don't know. It's going to be really, really cool to see her blending in with this new set of talent, getting to see her work with those talents, and then eventually getting to, the main roster, quote unquote, Raw and or SmackDown, and putting her in quality matchups. I'm looking forward to seeing what they've got up their sleeve. I mean, look, when Charlotte comes back, that'll be exciting. Stephanie Vacour is already kind of involved with WWE, at least signed. You got a rising few stars in NXT already. Roxanne Perez, of course. There's just a lot going on, and I really am looking forward to it. So, Julia arriving in NXT. No World Championship victory for Joe Hendry, unfortunately. But he was super over, so what the hell, who cares? I thought the main event of that show was great, though. Ethan Page hitting an amazing Razor's Edge to Joe Hendry. He kind of threw him, which was really... It was kind of like a jackknife and Razor's Edge on how he pulled that off, but... wow, it was a pretty solid match, I felt. So yeah, pretty solid WWE week, I felt. And of course, WWE week, I believe, is happening the following week, where they've got... Actually, you know what? I think it is next... It might be next week, because SmackDown's going to begin its run on USA, and the season premiere of Raw is next week, so I think they got a lot in the hopper planned out. So we'll see. We'll see. Let's get into as we kind of tilt towards the end of this show, only because again this is really just a hodgepodge. I planned for this All Out show to come out, but things got a little bit readjusted, and hopefully it will be out later tonight. So either way, you get this little half hour, 40-minute quick episode to satiate what happened this past week. But we'll be back to normal programming next week. And then I think potentially next week you'll get for the first episode of the Main Event Maniacs 2-part series. But I won't reveal any of that just yet. We'll have to see how it all shapes out. But before we get into what happened on Dynamite, they did reveal the turnstile count for All In at Wembley, and it was 46,476, and this combined with the little over 72,000 last year at Wembley. That's a total gate of two huge stadium shows at Wembley of 118,741, and I'm gonna phrase it just like I've said all along through Twitter and on other outlets, that AEW was founded on the notion that an independent pro wrestling company was unable to sell out a 10,000 seat arena. So with 5 years of being in existence from that, and now they've put together back-to-back Wembley Stadium shows with a total gate of 118,741. AEW should be incredibly proud of what they've accomplished thus far in regards to the gates and turnstiles, whatever you want to call it, people in attendance. First of all, it's tough to run the same event at the same venue back-to-back years and expect the same results. So 72,000, 46,000. You don't want to drop like that, but I felt the show looked great, and it is what it is. Like I really felt that it was a quality show, and just because it was 46,000 in there doesn't mean it's anything to sneeze at. I really feel that there's too many tribalistic fans that want WWE to fail or want AEW to fail and are so focused on the fans in attendance or how much they made or the ratings or what have you, that they're just missing the grand scheme of things. Like, again, AEW was founded on, you're not going to sell out 10,000. So now that they're a company and the expectations are all of a sudden astronomical, like, I don't think that's very fair. I think, sell what you can sell. You're not WWE. You're running the same building 2 years in a row with the same exact event. It's different matches, but it's the same gig. Next year, they're going to run Globe Life, in Texas for All In. I don't see why they can't set it up for 25, 30,000 and nail that, They don't need to try to set up for a sellout only to come short. I don't see why they can't just kind of be more realistic, set it up where they need to for a solid 25 to 30,000 and knock that out of the park. Quite literally, the pun intended there. It's a baseball stadium. So I think it was a success for All In for sure, and I don't see why All Out couldn't be a success coming up from Chicago. But let's get into what happened on Dynamite. This was a quality show, I felt, at least at the start and at the end. I feel like in the middle, it just kind of got lost in the shuffle, but I think the ending more than made up for anything lacking throughout. So as we discuss that, I will discuss I'm going to bring up the card real quick because quite a card. I believe it's an 8-match card for All Out. Right now, for the international title, we've got Will Ospreay versus Pac. The World Tag Team titles on the line. Young Bucks defend against the BCC, Wheeler Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli. Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander in a Chicago street fight. A 4-way match for the Continental Championship, Okada versus 3 TBD opponents. I'm pretty sure Takeshita will be a part of that. I'm not sure who else is involved with those matches. I don't have that necessarily up easily available, so I'm not going to act like I know. But I think Takeshita will be involved in there, and 2 other guys will be involved. MJF versus Daniel Garcia. Just a straight-up singles match. These two kind of making it very personal over the last couple weeks since All In, of course. Talk about bleeding and broken necks, and it just seems pretty nuts. So, arguably Daniel Garcia's biggest match, so we'll have to see if he can follow through. Camille being barred from ringside. Hikaru Shida versus Mercedes Moné, the champion. I think, Camille being barred helps Shida here, but I'm not sure what that really means. Again, I don't know when Monet is going to really lose the title. Bryan Danielson's going to defend the AEW World title against Jack Perry. And he, of course, is the TNT champion, but I don't foresee that championship being lost by Danielson to Jack Perry here, because they've made it known that Danielson, if he loses his championship, that will be the end of his in-ring consistent, work as a full-time guy. And then, which this is what I wanted to touch on from Dynamite, the main part of Dynamite, Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Adam Page in an unsanctioned lights-out steel cage match. These guys have had 3 brutal matches already. There has been blood drinking from the forehead of competitors. There have been just brutal matches throughout their, the Texas Death Match, their regular first match. Just a lot of interesting things. They were both in that triple threat at Revolution, and Joe retained. Just a lot of interesting factors between these two guys, and out on socials, Swerve posted, "Hey, I bought my house back. I got my childhood home. I purchased it. Whose house? Swerve's house. It's great moment." But as soon as it was posted, everybody was kind of like, "Look, this seems and smells like an angle." And I got a funny feeling Hangman's going to show up there. And there was a contract signing, and guess who didn't show up? Hangman. And why was that? He was too busy sitting in his lazy boy, drinking some whiskey, and burning the childhood home of Swerve Strickland. So, one hell of an image to close out Dynamite. I felt that it was one of the most strong. It's arguably one of the best stories, one of the strongest stories AEW's ever done. And I wanted to touch on that in 2024, we have been blessed as wrestling fans to get Hangman and Swerve as a huge story. The Mariah May, Tony Storm story. And then, of course, we've had the Cody and The Rock stories. Or story interwoven with the finish the story leading up to WrestleMania with the weight belt and Mama Rhodes and the cursing social media promos that were wonderful. A lot of great stuff throughout the year in regards to actual storytelling. So I think as wrestling fans we should be thrilled, and arguably we're just blessed to have quality storytelling in our companies that pick who you want. Tribalistic, not need me. I'm not that guy. I love AEW, I love WWE, and I will critique it if I think it sucks. But I'm not going to say everything sucks, and I'm not going to say everything's great. I try to be as objective with a little bit of subjectiveness because I like what I like, and it doesn't mean everybody has to like it either. So that's all fair and fun. I think, do we have any additional... I'm not sure. I thought we might have had some leftover Ask Juice questions, but maybe we don't. It was had to have been from... You know what we do? We have 2 Ask Juice questions I want to dive into before we conclude with a little bit of Sid Vicious talk. These were from our previous Ask Juice. If you had to pick between Seinfeld or WCW coming back, which would I choose? Very difficult decision. I think I mentioned it in that last Ask Juice segment that if Seinfeld were to come back, because they already kind of did that in the Curb Your Enthusiasm universe, season 7. But I would like to see, because again, with these guys being older, obviously, that's just what happens. It's just tough to put them in scenarios currently as these older guys and girl, with Elaine and what have you. And I just feel like it would be better for the series and not as insulting if they did an animated series like they did for the Cinemation segments on the DVDs, the Seinfeld DVDs, where you put them in any scenario you want currently, draw them up, animate them, and then have the actors come in and do the voices and voiceover. And I think that would actually work out decent. WCW, I have no interest in seeing coming back. I think WCW was perfect for what it was. We saw the mangling of ECW when it got, quote-unquote, revived, the WWE ECW brand. I'm not going to say, though, that it wasn't a total, it wasn't a total failure. It brought forth guys like Kofi Kingston and kind of elevated guys like Bobby Lashley, and I felt, that it was a strong CM Punk as well. Got his debut in ECW, Hammerstein Ballroom against Just Incredible. I just feel like that kind of worked for what it was, but to refer to it as ECW and the zombie thing, just so many bad parts of it. So, and the December to Dismember, it's arguably one of the worst pay-per-views of all time. And then the brand was done. WCW, I don't want to see come back. I like that. Look, they revived the Great American Bash pay-per-view. They did Starrcade as a house show in 2017 that I got to see, and then they did it a couple more times as special TV house shows, I believe. But they've done other stuff with WCW, And I don't know what's next. I don't know if they're gonna. NXT has Halloween Havoc, but they're doing a lot. They're doing Vengeance. They're doing Halloween Havoc. They're doing No Mercy. NXT's kind of like that throwback, flavor show or brand, if you will. So it is what it is. Ask Juice, WCW 2000 or Seinfeld 1997. First of all, I'm going to take offense to the fact that whoever asked that is putting it down in comparison to WCW 2000, considering WCW 2000 is arguably one of the worst years in history for pro wrestling. Hemorrhaging money, lost I think like $20 million overall. A lot of garbage happened. Bash at the Beach 2000 is a legendary show, but for the wrong reasons. It had its own episode of Dark Side of the Ring. WCW 2000 was just downright terrible. There's definitely parts that I enjoyed. I think it's actually underrated in that regard. I think there are some gems throughout the year, but as a whole, not that great. But to compare it to Seinfeld 97, which really, Seinfeld 97 into 98, so season 9, I don't think that the last 2 years of Seinfeld are a detriment. I don't think it's at a quality that I can't be proud of or love. I thoroughly enjoy seasons 8 and 9, and I think that they're really funny. Jerry's at the helm. There's no more Larry David, and it's just different. You know, it's a little bit more zany. You get Kramer's head as on the turkey and the slicer, but you know, some of these great episodes come out of it, like the Merv Griffin show and the dealership, the Bizarro Jerry. Some of the best episodes I think of Seinfeld actually turned out in seasons 8 and 9. So I'm actually not a detractor of those 2 seasons. So I'd rather have Seinfeld 97, 98 than WCW 2000 if we're really cutting down to brass tacks. So I do want to mention, though, as we close out this week, I think I mentioned it on the Bash in Berlin show with Josh Eisenberg. We discussed briefly a Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, Psycho Sid retrospective-ish, just remembering him. And, you know, he passed away on August 26th. Only 63, I believe, or 64. Very young. Very unfortunate passing. But, I mean, I'm going to look at him at his career as very fond. Damn, I mean, you look into a lab, you want to create a wrestler, that's Randy Orton. You want to go into a lab and create a monster pro wrestler that looks jacked, can be funny, can be serious. That guy is Sid, and he was believable as hell. Everybody, you know, kind of brought him in as this imposing guy, and he was. He main evented 2 WrestleManias against Hulk Hogan and against The Undertaker. Say what you want about the guy, but you main event 2 of the biggest shows of the year, and that's what you get, you know? You get, you know, Taker for the world title. He lost. And Hulk Hogan, it was supposedly Hogan's farewell match. Of course, that didn't happen, but I don't know. I think it's just wild to see that he main evented 2 of the biggest shows with 2 of the biggest stars in the history of the business. But I remember him, you know, powerbombing Brian Pillman to win War Games. Brutal moment there. Helping Ric Flair win the Royal Rumble in 92. I love that. His triumphant return to WCW in 93. Taking out Van Hammer. The Masters of the Powerbomb, Sid and Vader. Which they were supposed to have a clash at Starrcade 93, of course. But the scissor incident happened with Arn Anderson. And Arn stayed, Sid left. But Sid became a huge deal in WWF. Won the world title a couple of times there. I always felt that he looked great with the Winged Eagle. I really felt that that was a quality look for him. I felt that the belt was like perfect for him. And it was like the last bit of the new gen era there. Of course, he goes back to WCW. Not too great. Of course, the injury, WCW sin, but I do like his matches with Benoit and Goldberg towards the end of WCW. He of course, he had a little stint in ECW as well. But, yeah, I'm going to remember Sid fondly. Just a monster, master of the powerbomb, one of the better guys to do the powerbomb, an imposing figure. I loved his ramen noodle-looking hair, like his quirkiness, his on-accident, like his comedic promos that weren't supposed to be comedic. I mean, look, he's infamous for the can we start again? We're live, pal. You know, like I love that. It was just honest, organic, and like he was still imposing no matter if he messed up a line. Like it didn't matter. He was always believable. So, yeah, R.I.P. to Psycho Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, however you want to call him. One of the greatest big men I think of all time. And damn, dude, again, so unfortunate that he was not in the WWE Hall of Fame before he passed. It happened with Vader, it happened with Sid, and it probably will happen with more people, unfortunately, until they can get them in quicker. I mean, and I think I mentioned this to Josh at the Bash and Berlin show, but guys, like let's just look at it like this. I'm not saying that Lex Luger's in any worse shape than Sid or anybody else, but just as an example, Lex Luger, who was a physical specimen, but then had some health issues, of course, well documented, and now he's in a wheelchair. He's doing a lot better. I think his goal is to go to the Hall of Fame, get inducted, and walk on stage, which I think would be amazing. But you see where the health has declined. And it's like, at what point should we just get these guys in before it's too late, And their fans are wanting and are desperate for it to happen. So, I don't know. Maybe Sid gets in next year, but it's too late. It's really too late. So, R.I.P. to Sid. But this has been a hodgepodge of the Juice Box this week. I'm going to reiterate it one more time. As long as everything goes according to plan with editing and what have you, the All Out Predictions show will be airing later on tonight. So check that out in the feed. It'll be on here in the RSS feed, of course, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, via iTunes, Amazon Music, and JuicySteen.podbean.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Juicy Wrestling Closet and on Twitter at Juicy Steen. So this has been the Juice Box here early in September. We've made it practically to fall. Football is here. It's right around the corner. This weekend is a full slate. College football has already been in. But, wrestling still takes precedent here on the Juice Box. So check out the All Out Prediction Show. Check out All Out this weekend on Saturday. Tomorrow night should be a fun show to watch. And then I will be back with you guys next week for another edition of the Juice Box with some information, hopefully, on the upcoming Main Event Maniacs episode. So for yours truly, I am Juice Springsteen. I'll see you guys next week with another episode of The Juice Box. That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.